So this week at the Become Project, we have a repeat routine. So for those of you who have been becoming for long enough, hopefully this week you're experiencing some muscle memory, you're noticing the difference of what the routine was like for you last time versus what it's like this time. And then for those of you who this is your first time doing the routine, welcome. So I've taken a look at all of your tutorial questions, and actually the tutorial that I made for you last time this routine came out answered almost every single one of your questions. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tack on that one to make sure that we have everything covered. But the one question that it didn't answer that a lot of you had was how to alleviate wrist pain in the oblique series. So that's what I want to talk with you about now. I want to give you not only some alternatives that you can do, but I really want to dive into the form so that you understand what needs to happen to help get some weight off of the wrist. So, well, let's go ahead and get started. All right, when it comes to doing side planks up on the hands, there are two key points that you need to know to help not only take pressure off the wrist, but just to make the entire exercise feel more stable. Key point number one is hand placement, and key point number two is something we're gonna call rainbow hips. So first, let's start to talk about hand placement. Come here, Papa. Hi. Hand placement. Okay, the hand cannot be directly underneath the shoulder. I actually just tried to film this video and show you what it looks like with my hand directly underneath my shoulder, but it hurt so much that I really don't want to do it again. So I'm going to show you very quickly on my knee here without going all the way up. Here, my hand is right underneath my shoulder, okay? And I'm gonna tell you what this ends up creating. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Number one, it creates this very, very deep crease in the wrist. And anytime you're doing an exercise and you see a really deep crease in your wrist, it means that you're going to experience wrist pressure. It means that there's a lot of pressure cramping down in this joint. If you have not watched the wrist tutorial that I have, I explain this in depth, so I definitely give that a look. The other thing that that position does is it doesn't allow you to kind of plug your shoulder blade down and in. And when you do a side plank, your lat, your back muscle back here is actually working just as much as the oblique is. So when you do a side plank, you're working from like here to here on this portion of the body, okay? So again, this alignment is going to give me big wrist crease, and it's not going to give me much room to be able to really plug that shoulder blade back. Plug that shoulder blade back. Okay, so I have two options. I can step my hand forward, or I can take my body and I can move it backwards. Do you just see what happened to everything? All of a sudden my chest opened, my shoulder blade plugged, my hand is now lengthened forward. Look at how open this portion of my wrist is. This is the first step in where you need to go. So once again, when you side plank, you have to get that hand out in front of your shoulder, create space underneath your armpit to pull pressure off the wrist, and then to engage the lat. Next piece, rainbow hips. Okay, rainbow hips is actually the key to making this whole exercise sing, okay? Rainbow hips is very much what it sounds like. It's lifting the hips up so high that you recreate that arcing shape of a rainbow in the body. Now, I just spent quite a bit of time telling you about the hand placement, right? Because I wanted you to have a really strong visual of what that means. However, doing rainbow hips can almost always correct the hand placement. I'm going to show you what I mean, because who knows if that just made sense, right? All right, here I am. I have this strong wrist crease, I have a deep wrist crease. This is lined up. We know that this is not the right placement. I'm going to go ahead and step my foot out, And now I'm gonna take my hips and I'm going to lift them up. Whoa, did you see what just happened with my shoulder? My shoulder pretty much got to the right spot. I've adjusted my feet a little bit, but my hips move the shoulder. Watch, hips go down, shoulder goes forward. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hips go up, shoulder goes backwards, and now my body weight is lifting up and away to the sky, right? And anytime we lift up, we take pressure away from the joints. So we've created opposition by the hand pressing down and forward, the hips lifting up. And bonus, when you bump those hips up, what muscle's helping you get there? The oblique and the lat, right? It's through here, this oblique, lifting me. Now I have more of a cinch and I have less pressure in all the rest of my joints. So I do want to give an option to this series that is no wrist at all, because regardless of what you do with the body, there's still going to be some pressure on the wrist. So in case you cannot take any pressure on the wrist, here is an alternative option that you can do. You're going to need a chair because it's pretty tricky to do this one on the floor. So you'll need a chair, a couch, something you can put your weight on, okay? On 1, 2, you're going to bend the right knee and bring your forearm down to the chair. Notice that my fingers are facing you. On 3, 4, I'm actually going to use this hand to help me step out, okay? So I'm going to hold here and here. 3, 4, I step out, which follows your normal counts. 5, 6, option to spin open. Do still give me those rainbow hips, bump them up. Then, let's see, 7, 8, we turn back down. 1, 2 is a hold. 3, 4, footsteps in. 5, 6, lifting, and then 7, 8, turning. The great thing about this series is that you'll still follow all the counts that we have in the video. The only difference will be moving down to the forearm. The hip flexors and the low belly tend to be directly related. So typically, if we're feeling a lot of hip flexors in something like this, it's because we're not particularly using enough low belly in the motion. Let me show you what I mean. I could easily lean forward and back from hinging right here at this hip crease. Do you all see that? Right now, I am feeling a lot of hip flexors. Now, I want you to watch the change that happens. In order to lean back, I'm going to scoop my belly. And then I'm going to unscoop the belly to come up. And when I do it this way, that causes the legs to relax a little bit more. You still may feel something, but it puts more of that weight into the low belly. So in this week's warm-up, when you twist back, you have to really think about scooping. And if you find that that's still not working for you, your hips are tight, maybe that's just a tight area, then you should bend one knee or both knees so you don't have as much pressure moving forward on the legs, and then that should help you release the hips as you take this warm-up. Okay, leg series. This is always a hot question that comes through. How do I avoid sinking into the standing hip? Now, before I go any further, I have a full tutorial on this called Single Kneeling Leg Tutorial that you should definitely watch, because it's going to give you some more well-rounded overall tips of how to get out of that leg. Because listen, it is not an easy exercise. I get that, okay? But it will improve as you continue on. And this week is a perfect time to practice it because you're only in the position for 4 counts, okay? So when you're in this position, couple things I want you to make sure of. Your hands definitely need to be wider. By giving yourself a wider base with the hands, you'll basically have like more leg to stand on as opposed to trying to be really narrow in here. So widen the base all the way across the board. And then here's the biggest thing that you need to think about. It is your low belly that lifts you out of the hip. So when I'm here I am, I'm sinking down into this hip right now. I need to use my low abdominals to lift up, 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 and out. This exercise, kneeling with a single leg, is 100% core. So here I am, I'm sinking down. I want to think about pulling the low belly in, lifting out of the hip, staying here. Lots of space, and that's where you're going to start to find all the good stuff happens. Let's move through a few form reminders for your lunge series to make sure you're not feeling a lot of knees or a lot of lower back or any of the wrong places, right? So this week we're doing an upright lunge, which means that your back leg has a little bend to it. So become lunge all the way out here. We have a tutorial on this. Upright lunge, we also have a tutorial on this. That's where your back leg is in a little bit. Now, I want to show you a few wrong ways. So wrong way number one would be to take the chest up and try to get down really low like this. Ouch, that does not feel good. You'll notice this, it makes my knee go forward over my ankle. This puts a ton of pressure on my quadricep right here. And I also have a lot of pressure on this back leg. Really, really common for people to move into this spot because they like to think my head needs to be tall and I need to be low. This isn't going to get you anywhere, so watch the change. You shift your knee backwards, angle a little bit forward, and this is where we want to go. Now, with the lower back, okay, one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you're not sinking into the hip of the working leg. And this is where it kind of crosses form techniques with the leg series that we did before. So look here, if I sink down into this hip, do you see this, right? Now my right hip is higher than my left hip, and my belly is falling here onto the leg, and now I'm gonna feel it in my lower back and right over here on the side of the hip. So I wanna think about evening out those hips. Look, look, look. Low belly pulls in and up. Yes, so I'm using my abdominals to lift up and over the leg, and now I have nice light weight in my back leg. This is pulling in, lifting up. Low belly supports the lower back, and that should be able to give me those little punches. In the oblique series this week, we are moving from a twisted plank to a lunge. Now the feedback so far has either been, I love it, or I feel like a pretzel. So what I want to do today is I want to make sure, number one, that you understand where you're moving directionally with the leg, and then number two, give you an alternative that you can do to get up and get there a little bit easier. So first of all, in the twisted plank, the leg that is under and forward. So maybe you want to think the inside leg or the leg closest to the mat. That's the leg that you're trying to move. So at this moment, that would be my right leg. I'm working to take my right foot in and forward to a lunge position, however we need to get there, right? So that's number one. Now, because that is really tough, maybe you have long legs and it's not super easy to get through, you could also just come down to kneeling before moving that leg in. So you hold your hands on 1, 2, on 3, 4, kneel, step your leg up, then you can lift the chest for 5, 6. And it's not a problem to move this way to get there. I would also highly recommend considering using the chair in this series. I show it in both learn mode and flow mode, and I do think that that chair option is super, super helpful here because it's still tough and you have a lot of space to be able to move your body. If doing isolated arm motions is still difficult for you to get a lot of sensation, I I want you to practice a couple of things this week before moving into the whole series of doing arm circles and the pulls and all of that, okay? What you want to do is figure out how to flex the muscles in your arm just in a standing position. So watch here. I'm going to bring my arms to the side. Here they're not flexed. Here they're flexed. Not flexed. Flexed, okay? Now what you want to be able to do is get this sensation of it feeling flexed and then add little movements to it. So when I'm doing something like this, my arm is staying flexed the entire time. What I'm not doing is going unflex, flex, unflex, flex, right? Instead, I'm trying to keep that muscle active as I do little movements back and forth. And this technique of staying active, not releasing the muscle, is why this series ends up burning so much. So as I'm here in my arm circles, I'm gonna plug my shoulder blades down, hands go just a little lower than the shoulders, then I'm going to flex those muscles, I'm gonna get them turned on, and now I'm gonna try to keep them flexed by doing tiny little circles, as opposed to releasing and trying to go big. So again, the number one thing I want you to practice with this one this week is how do you stand in position, flex the muscles, and then just start to add teeny tiny movement.